You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us wherever you are in the world. You are watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. I am your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer. We love having you with us today. Thank you so much. This show is near and dear to me because it is the very first show that I started with. And I started this Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn and this particular show, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, Overcoming Adversity, to give people a platform to share their story of what they've been going through. For those of you who don't know, I have 3 autoimmune illnesses myself. I have ulcerative colitis, psoriasis, and eczema. And I run a support group for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. And I really wanted people who were struggling with health issues and other types of issues to have some place that they could come and feel safe sharing their story, because by sharing your story, you'll help inspire someone else to share their story. We don't want to keep our stories locked up inside of us because they just make it worse for us, for our physical and mental well-being. My guest today is a good friend and someone who has her own story to share. She's joining us today from Canada. Before I bring her out, though, you there?
You're back.
Yes, I don't know what happened. We're having technology problems today all day. I was saying I wanted to play your clip, and then we just disappeared. So I don't know what happened. So my apologies, everyone. It's been one of those days today with technology. So, okay, so here's your clip, and then we'll have you share with us what you were feeling when you actually made this, because you were very transparent and you shared some things that you go through in your own life. So let's take a look and then have your comments on that.
The world is changing and your company needs to change with it. Whether it's procurement, employment, marketing, or customer service, it's now more important than ever for your business processes to be inclusive to people with disabilities. Hi, I'm Trish Robichaud with Changing Paces, and I'm here to tell you that making your business processes accessible to people with disabilities is simply good for business. Accessibility and inclusion are the law, but here's what you may not realize. Disability inclusion is an opportunity, not an obstacle. In fact, a recent 4-year study found that companies that fully embrace disability inclusion had a 30% higher profit margin than those that didn't. Your investment in staff disability inclusiveness training can pay off in areas like innovation, brand recognition, as well as customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty, not to mention productivity and profitability. At Changing Paces, we can help you make that happen for your business. Our experts have real-life experience that will help your team gain insight and best practices they won't get anywhere else. And we can help you create a customized training program to bring your organization into compliance with local and industry regulations. This topic is very close to my heart for me, very personal. Dealing with the challenges of MS for the past 25 plus years and having lost my job as a result of my diagnosis back then, I've made it my mission to bring disability out of the darkness and create a more welcoming environment for people of all abilities. As a pioneer in the field of inclusiveness, our company developed and implemented one of the first accessible customer service training programs in Canada. We provide complete online training solutions that blend with your branding, your policies, and your systems. Between our disability subject matter experts and our technical partners, we can provide you with both the content and the platform that you need to create an evergreen training program that empowers your people while it transforms your organization and your company culture. In short, we make disability inclusion easy in all parts of your business. Contact us now for a quote or consultation at info@changingpaces.com. Your bottom line will thank you.
I want to say hello to Philip Chan and Philip Sykes. Thank you for being here. Trish, you recorded that and you shared something with everyone. I don't know if that was the first time that you did it, but that you've been living with MS. And I just wondered, when you look back and watch that clip now, what are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts? Wow, I'm really proud of the commercial we produced. In terms of the diagnosis, you know what? When I see that commercial, I feel empowered. Because you know why? Because MS empowered my life. There are so many positive things that have come out of my life as a result of the illness. But yeah, so that's a short answer. Yeah, and I feel empowered by that commercial. Yeah.
As you should. That is a fabulous commercial. And the fact that you shared something so sensitive and personal with others in a public forum, I think is just tremendous. And I think that's what this platform is all about. That's why I started this, as I mentioned at the beginning, because we think we're doing ourselves a service, a favor, by keeping it locked up, and we just make our situation worse. And meanwhile, there are other people out there going through the same thing. And if we can only all come together and support each other, it would be a much better place.
The volume of people that are struggling alone is very sad. Because it's unnecessary. Because there are so many of us out there now, that are willing to talk, and they're willing to talk to people about it. So like, suffering in silence is completely unnecessary. I just welcome people to like bridge that gap. That's the hardest part, eh? Like, when the unknown, it's fear of the unknown is the worst fear of humanity. And it's not knowing what's on the other side if you reach out. But I gotta tell you, man, my experience is people who live with like conditions, or just even any condition, chronic illness in general, or disability in general, or whatever. Anybody that faces barriers and has faced them with, their spirit, as opposed to like trying to push down the emotions, right? Anybody who's there, we're welcoming, we welcome that interaction, because there's nothing more empowering than helping somebody else live a happier life.
I definitely agree with you. And I wonder if you think this is a fair statement, but I just know from my own personal journey that I did keep it stuff down. I kept it stuff down for a long time. I mean, probably 2 decades. So I don't think it's unusual to keep it's stuff down, but let's not do it for a long amount of time. I don't know what that amount of time is, but I wish, if I could go back in that regard, that I would have just opened up about it instead of living in shame and fear for those probably 2 decades.
You know what? I don't believe in regret. Dr. Jacalyn, I challenge you to think about those 2 years as it was an investment. It was a lesson that you needed to learn, right? And had you not kept quiet all those years, now your awareness would be completely different, right?
Yes.
And you have a softer heart. You have a soft heart for people who shy away from things, right? Are you not more compassionate?
Definitely.
In your life who shy away from things? Well, see, that's the purpose of that 20 years of silence. Okay, it serves a purpose. And me, I God blessed me with a big mouth. And most of the time he also gave me enough of diplomacy to go with it that I actually reach people. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who live with chronic illness or disability who are advocates, but who approach it with such passion without any kind of filter that they actually they negate our cause. So it's important to have people in advocacy positions who can speak the political speak when necessary, and who can, abide by the rules, so to speak. Stay within the guidelines. It doesn't mean I don't color outside the line whenever I can, but I just think it's really important for people to know that we're out there. We're out there serving, and we're out there supporting, and we're out there advocating. My latest advocacy project is I'm involved with a group of people with multiple sclerosis. And me and a few other people representing about 300 people with MS. And we're trying to advocate for our local politicians and municipality to help us build a residential facility for people with disabilities that is age appropriate for those of us who end up with disability early in life. And we're also looking for nothing small. It couldn't be small. No, it's got to be we want a rehabilitation clinic attached to that facility as well. So yeah, because there's so many people in our area that have to drive so far for rehab. It's ridiculous. It's like a 2-hour drive for some people. Yeah.
Trish, what type of funding are you looking for?
Well, we've already connected with the feds, so we know that there is federal money in Canada for such a. It would really be. It would either be a brand new build, or it would be a renovation of an existing facility. So I think we're looking at, if we renovate, we're looking at like some strip motels, some old motels. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, and that's about all I can do on that subject at the moment.
I just wondered, in case somebody was watching or listening, they might be able to support you and this initiative. They could contact you
Absolutely. They can contact me at trish@changingpaces.com. And we are looking for funding, and we're looking for a facility that might be appropriate for rehabilitation. And we're looking in York Region, Ontario. All right. So we're talking an hour north of Toronto, and just on the fringes of bottom of Lake Simcoe. This is where we're at and where we're looking for facilities. So if you're out there and you hear this, please reach out. Trish@changingpaces.com. Thanks.
And we never know who's out there watching or listening. Maybe not this moment, but maybe it'll be when it turns into a podcast, or maybe when it's over on our social media platforms. So it's. I think it's always good to give out that information.
Thank you for that opportunity, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. I just wanted to let our audience know how we met, because it's kind of one of those things that, if it weren't for social media per se, but it was actually Lunch Club that we met on, and we connected and just formed this bond, and then from there we're doing all kinds of things together. So so the point is, we talk about reaching out. Please either call someone on the phone. We just had a show before this with Reverend Dottie Boone, and she talked about reaching out to 4 people every day, because maybe some people they're so depressed. They can't even imagine picking up the phone because they think, what am I going to talk to anyone about? No one cares about me. That's not true. So please reach out to somebody through somehow. I just mentioned about Lunch Club, lunchclub.com, not a paid sponsor, but I've met, over 50 people I never would have met otherwise, who bring joy to my life, and I try to bring joy to theirs. So just encourage
it. It's a free platform. It doesn't cost anything to belong to Lunch Club and make these connections. It doesn't cost a dime, which is so cool.
That is really cool. And the same thing with Clubhouse. And again, not a paid sponsor, but why not make a connection with somebody? Because whatever you're going through, as we know, like we all have something we're going through. We're all at some point in our life in pain, but that doesn't mean that it has to be forever. And that doesn't mean you have to go through it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Trish, there's so much more of your story that we want to hear, but we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. So stay with us, folks. We've got a lot more. Trish is going to share more of her story with us, and we're happy to have you here on this beautiful Friday.
Hey everybody, my name is Ralph Graves Jr. I'm the host of the Ralph Graves Jr. Show, and I want to invite you to pick up my book, Unstoppable. I wrote a book called Unstoppable. It's 7 universal laws that will transform how you pursue and achieve success. The one thing that my 20 years of law enforcement has taught me is that no matter who you are, we are all governed by universal laws, like gravity. But in this book, we're going to talk about laws like the law of forgiveness, laws like the law of control, the law of intelligent practice, the law of expectancy. I was able to see how those, no matter what their background was, those who identified and treated these laws with respect, they were able to go on and lead successful lives. So pick up this book, and you can go ahead and pick it up at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, RalphGravesJr.com, where anywhere where fine books are sold. Thank you.
There are 7.7 billion people on Earth today. 40% of these people are under the age of 25. Young adults are the most fertile mission field in the world today. In Scripture, we see Jesus pouring his life into 12 young adults who he equipped to change the world and all of history. Like Jesus, we believe that the best approach to reach the world with the gospel is to invest in young, emerging leaders and equip them to build disciple-making movements. Concentric is the notion of surrounding and sharing a common center. Our center is the model and strategy of Jesus for both leadership development and ministry formation. As a global alliance, we provide equipping in biblical leadership based on Jesus' example in the New Testament. Jesus modeled for us how to make disciples that reproduce. Focusing on leadership development is key to creating movements that spread the gospel and Jesus' disciple-making strategy to young leaders around the globe. Our Ministry Alliance partners are actively equipping leaders and building movements of multiplication that reproduce the life of Christ. Join us today to equip young leaders with Jesus' strategy that will change cities and nations.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAP partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAP partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Academy Sedan and Limo is a full-service transportation company serving the Philadelphia metropolitan area with full knowledge of the New York City, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. areas. We pride ourselves on being the most dependable, conscientious company in the industry. Our always on-time service and dependable pricing make us the company to call for any event or occasion. Our vehicles can accommodate any size party for any occasion. Our vehicles range from four-door sedans to SUVs to minivans to limo buses to full-size tour buses and can accommodate groups of 2 to 100. We offer airport shuttle service or over-the-road service without limitation regarding mileage or time, and no drive is too long or too far. So if you find yourself in need of transportation of any type with any vehicle, give us a call at 610-842-4564 and let us show you what a real transportation company can do for you.
Use code ACADEMY2020 to receive 20% off your first 3 rides, including parking and tolls.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, Stories of Hope. Here we have hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. Trish, I want to talk about the work that you're doing, but before that, I really want to talk about the overcoming adversity piece, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So for people out there, that they don't know what MS is, multiple sclerosis, would you share a little bit about what the disease actually is and how it affects your life?
Okay. MS is an autoimmune disorder, which means your immune system is actually attacking your body. And in the case of MS, it is your body's T cells are actually attacking your myelin sheath, which is the protective fatty substance that covers all of your central nervous system, from your brain to every part of your body in your central nervous system. Primarily, MS creates lesions because we get scar tissue from the damage to the nervous system. And it's that scar tissue that creates gaps in the electrical conductivity of the brain, the energy in the brain, the messages in the brain. I'm getting from the brain, for example, to the end of my fingertips, for say, or maybe it's not just the message doesn't get through, and maybe I'm numb in that case, or maybe it's that in my case, for example, there's dysfunction in the nervous system, which for me, in my case, it means from my fingertips to my elbows, I have a 24/7 continuous neuropathic pain, which is similar to everybody knows when you sit with your legs crossed too long, your feet go to sleep. But when they wake up, you're in big trouble because you get that prickling pins and needles feeling that's really uncomfortable, but wears off after a few minutes. Well, it doesn't wear off for me. So I get that prickly, burning pins and needles feeling from my fingertips to my elbows 24/7, and has been 20 years now. Well, 20 years I've had that symptom. It's been 28 years. The MS has been there now. So, yeah, but for everybody, symptoms are different. My collection of symptoms are different from somebody else's collection of symptoms. My first 8 years with the disease, I had, I can't even tell you, it's either like seven or eight times I've gone blind in one eye or the other. Never, knock on wood, never both at once. But I mean, completely blind, like black. Yeah. And my vision would return. Once it came back in a couple of weeks. But one relapse took over 2 years for my vision to return in that eye. And yeah, I could still drive. My employer didn't know that. And so that's some of the adversities that your show talks about, your show title talks about, Dr. Jacalyn. Because when I was diagnosed with MS, my employer didn't believe me. So that would be that will be a segue for us to another little piece for you. I just kept going.
So, Trish, I had chills backstage here when you talked about what you went through and going blind and not having your vision in one eye for 2 years. I mean, the fear must be overwhelming. And meanwhile, you're trying to adjust to a new way of living and hoping that your vision's going to come back. And yet you were still working at a job while you were doing all this.
Yeah, yeah. And I was good at my job. I loved my job. It wasn't what God put me on the planet to do, but I was good at it and I enjoyed it as a credit manager. I was also did counseling back then because I was really about money credit counseling with my clients. But yeah, it was really sad when the day of my diagnosis, I left my neurologist's office in shock. Like I didn't know it was coming. I really didn't know it was coming. I knew something serious was going on, but I didn't know that was going on. And on the way home, all I could think about was my job. That's all I could think about because up until my diagnosis, I had been having symptoms for like 7 months by the time I was diagnosed. And I had had multiple episodes of sick leave over the months. And one was like 8 weeks. And that was when that was when they thought I had a brain tumor. Okay. And So when I was finally diagnosed, I was more worried about my job than my health. It was very sad. I had been through so much harassment at work and discrimination that that's all I could think about was my job at that point. It was really sad. And then 3 days after my diagnosis, I was proven right for my concern about my job. Because 3 days after my diagnosis, I got a phone call from my neurologist. And he told me that he had just had a phone call from my general manager who tried to strong arm information from him over the phone about my prognosis. My neurologist was so appalled and horrified that he had this phone call. Never in all the years he'd practiced had he gotten a phone call from an employer trying to pressure him into revealing information. Anyways, so yeah, that was just the tip of the iceberg, building up to that point, and then from that point on, I went to the Canadian Human Rights Commission after that, and they said, yes, you definitely have a case, and they said, the fact that you still work there is unusual, that you're filing a case against an employer where you're still working. And they said, but by law, they cannot turn up the heat. And I went, yeah, right. Yeah. So from the time I filed the complaint to the time they let me go was about 2.5 months. And that I swear to God, Dr. Jacalyn, I cried myself to work and back every single day for that 2.5 months. Right after I got that phone call from the neurologist, my employer hauled me into the head office there, and let me know they had decided that I was no longer capable of working full time. They were cutting my job in half. They were cutting my salary in half. They were cutting my time, my hours in half. They were cutting my benefits in half, but they weren't cutting my workload in half. And I still had to go to work 5 days a week, but I could only work half days. I'd had to be there in the morning, and they knew mornings were my worst time of day with the MS. So I had to be there at 8:30 in the morning till noon. Okay. And then I would just I don't even know how I find my way home after that, seriously, because to get there and then the drama that was going on there that they were subjecting me to, it was unbelievable. But anyway, mercifully, they did finally let me go. And I knew with my complaint against them, I couldn't quit during that period of time because it would have diminished my case, I think, my position. I felt anyway at the time, and this was the 90s. Okay, like it was early 90s. Things were nowhere near where they are now, where you see lawyers on TV actually advocating, telling people with disabilities to come to them. I know we're talking about lawyers here, okay, but still, like, there was back in the 90s when I tried to get a lawyer to represent me, it was no, I don't think so. Like, there's nothing on the law, there's nothing, and so yeah, they all told me to go to the Human Rights Commission, and Human Rights did acknowledge that I had a case, so that's how I went. But yeah, it was. I learned a lot of lessons, and I learned the biggest lesson I learned, Dr. Jacalyn, is that it didn't have to go down like that. It didn't have to.
It's just unbelievable. You get diagnosed with MS, which in and of itself has got to be just completely devastating. You said you had no idea whatsoever. You find out you have this chronic, incurable autoimmune disease. You're working in this workplace where your general manager calls your neurologist, trying to violate your rights. Now you have a lawsuit. You're still in the workplace. It's unbelievable, Trish. Unbelievable what just all those things, how they had an impact on you physically and mentally. And yet, here you are.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like a phoenix. I just keep rising from the ashes. People have told me that. Yeah. I have an aunt who I called her one day after I don't know what the latest trial in my life was, but she just said to me, Trish, don't even worry about it. And I said, why? And she said, because you always come back up. You always get back up again. You will get back up again this time. And I wanted to say, hey, screw you. I was looking for some consolation, but yeah.
That is an answer people give you quite a lot is, yeah, you got it. You always come back. But meanwhile, you want somebody to just hug you and say, just hold me for a minute.
Exactly. Yeah. But the beauty that I learned from the whole experience, Dr. Jacalyn, was, again, like I said, it didn't have to go down like that. So what I took away from that was that number one, you had to be an advocate for yourself. If you have a chronic illness or disability, you have to be willing to step up and speak up. Okay. And I filed that lawsuit, not just for myself, but for many people who live with disability that don't have the emotional fortitude to fight that kind of battle. Not everybody has the big mouth that the Lord blessed me with. Okay. And thankfully he blessed me with enough diplomacy that I'm able to reach people. And that's important to me. I'm very grateful for that. But the learnings took me to they took me to volunteering, for one thing. Right after the lawsuit, I was like way too sick to work. I had 2 to 3 major relapses every year for about 8 years. My longest remission in 8 years was 3 months, the first segment into the disease. So it wasn't for about 8 years. I had been volunteering at that point, basically the whole time, because first thing I did after my diagnosis was find a support group. And I just happened to go to a support group where there was a guest speaker there talking about a fundraising campaign from their provincial office. And I made the mistake when he said, I got a binder here if anybody wants to have a look at it. And I put up my hand, and that was it. That was the beginning of my volunteer career. I got sucked in like a vortex. And 14 years later, I gave notice to the national and the provincial office that I was resigning because I was doing 30 hours a week providing peer support counseling to people diagnosed with MS.
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't just walk away from those people, but I wanted to go back to work. By then, my MS had stabilized so much that I could go back to work. And it had stabilized because I had made some significant lifestyle changes, improvements in my life. And so that's what happened. I volunteered. I gave them a year's notice. In the meantime, I went back to school, got my certification as a life skills coach, and then once I was my term was over, I hung up my shingle and I started life coaching people with disabilities. Yeah. And eventually it evolved into teaching entrepreneurs with disabilities how to more effectively manage their business and their health so that they can build some sustainability and resilience into their lives and their businesses.
Well, it's no surprise that after how you were treated and what you went through, that you then would want to help others to make sure that they don't go through the same things that you've gone through. And then when you got that diagnosis, maybe there was somebody there for you to talk to, but it sounds like you were diagnosed with something, you had no idea, and now you're there on the other side of the table, the computer, the phone, helping other people who've also gotten that diagnosis. And I think that's amazing,
That's
Trish.
why I feel like the MS is a gift in my life, really, because before the illness, I was living the corporate rat race, want to make more than the next guy, want to have a flashier car than the next guy. I was living that life. And after the MS, it was a huge wake-up call. And the other piece around it brought me back down to reality. And I started, taking more nature walks and doing more healthy things and making healthier choices. But that didn't happen right away. It took a couple of years. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. Up until the time, let's say gonna spin backwards to I'm 22. I'm finally diagnosed with major depression. I'd had episodic depression all my life since I was a young teenager, and finally diagnosed when I was 22, and finally went on antidepressants at that point. But I didn't know, and now I understand that non-compliance with medication is chronic for people with mental illness. I was non-compliant with my medication for 8 years. Okay. Now ask me what it took for me to become compliant.
What did it take, Trish?
It took me trying to kill myself.
Wow.
That's what it took. One night, it was 2 years. Or my husband and I were both work hard, party hard. Okay. When I was diagnosed. And so that meant there was lots of booze, recreational drugs, lots of that going on in my life. And when the MS came along, and for 2 years after the diagnosis, after I lost my job, I continued that lifestyle. And it wasn't a woe is me mission. It was I just don't give a shit. Okay. And that was depression. Okay. Depression, that's exactly, to me, I call them, when I do training now on mental illness, I talk about, man, I don't know if I can swear on the air. I just did it anyway. I'm going to do it again. I call my depressive days. They are my, I just don't give a shit days, because I am complete sense of apathy. I just don't care. And that makes it so easy to acknowledge that it's the illness and it's not me or a moral weakness. Because I'm so passionate about my work and my clients, Dr. Jacalyn, that when I wake up and I don't even care to check my email, that I know that's not me. That's somebody else altogether. That's some beast that's crawled inside of me, and Winston Churchill called it the black dog that would crawl in, Robin Williams, he had his own perception, none of us knew how really ill he was with mental illness until he took his own life. And we are so emotionally swayed by other people living in depression and by suicidal attempts that, and I researched this for one of my not that long ago presentations. Did you know that after Robin Williams' suicide attempt, the suicide rate in Canada and the US was 10% higher than it would normally have been for 2 months?
Wow.
That's purely because we empathized with him. And we went there with him. It's just how powerful the illness is what I'm saying,
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so honest and authentic and transparent with everything you've shared, Trish, because there's a lot there, and you're very courageous and brave, and you spend your time helping other people. And there's so much more we can talk about, but unfortunately we're out of time. I can't believe it. And we have another show right after this. So I thank you, and I hope you'll come back, and maybe we can peel back some of those and depression, suicide.
There is a lot there. Yeah.
There's a lot there, and we can't do a justification in this short amount of time. So love to have you come back.
That would be very welcome. Thank you.
Would you please share with people again how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. I didn't even really mention that I'm a life coach and a business coach, and I work with entrepreneurs with disabilities. And you can reach me at Trish at Changing Paces. That's my business, Changing Paces, as in slowing down. PACES, Trish at changingpaces.com. But if you're sure that you would really like to meet me and we can want to jump on a Zoom call together, all you got to do is go to 4, Talk with Trish. So 4talkwithtrish.com. You go there and book a session on my calendar. I look forward to meeting you.
Just do it. Like Nike, just do it. We have a comment. Yeah. Trish is an angel for helping so many people. I totally agree with that.
Thank you.
And again, my apologies, because you're, such a profound statement about what you went through. And then I have to end the show. And I always hate that, because then there's somebody else who's waiting for me in the next studio. So
I get it.
Yeah, so I'm really sorry, but we'll definitely have you back on. And I just want to tell people that Trish has helped me so much with our platform, A Better You. And she's also helped me streamline some of my processes and try to get rid of a lot of these little details, little nitpicking things that are just a waste of time. So thank you again, Trish, for your friendship and for your partnership. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
All right.
God brought us together. I have no doubt.
I totally agree. I agree. Thank you. We have another show coming up in, let's see, it's 16 minutes. So I look forward to seeing everybody. That's the Variety Show. And we'll be right here, same channel, same station. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Trish. Have a beautiful evening.